Take super cool British heritage styling, add battery power, and you have the new Maving RM1. I can't recall a time I've enjoyed riding through a jam-packed central London and received that much attention from a bike. People walking on the street, taxi drivers at the lights, couriers, even a nice lady at the cafe where we stopped for a trendy coffee. They all asked the same thing. "That's so cool. Is that electric, mate?" If you're looking for an electric motorcycle these days, bikes like the Harley-Davidson Livewire or the Zero SRF will be highly recommended. Both offer petrol power levels of performance, but come with hefty price tags of £28,000 and £21,000 respectively. If you want a sub £7,000 electric bike with classic retro styling that can zip you around the city, the options have been non-existent. Enter the Maving RM1. Designed and built in the heartlands of British motorcycle manufacturing, Maving set up shop in Coventry in 2017, led by Seb Inglis-Jones and Will Stirrup. The company now employs a growing team of about 22, many of whom used to work for another Midlands-based bike manufacturer you might have heard of, Triumph. We spent a sunny afternoon riding the new RM1 through the busiest streets London could throw at us to see if this super cool heritage bike could really perform when the going gets tough. But first, let's talk specs. The automatic twist and go RM1 comes in two variations, a single battery option for $4,995 and a dual battery option for $5,990. Both give you the same level of performance with a top speed of 45 miles per hour, but the extra battery doubles the range from 40 to 80 miles. When you're done riding, slide out the snazzy looking brushed aluminium Samsung batteries and drop them onto the charging unit, which you connect to a standard 240 volt wall socket. The main battery compartments are located traditionally where the engine and fuel tank would be. Run with just one battery, and the fuel tank area provides 10 litres of storage space, handy for those midweek food shops. Within 4 hours, each battery is charged and ready to go, each battery weighing a solid 12 kilos, so depending on how many you're carrying, the bike will either weigh 102 kilograms or 124. Now, I like these batteries. Unlike some other batteries you can take out of the bike that look like unsightly car batteries with a handle, the Mavings look sophisticated, the kind of thing that would, look okay in the office, or they wouldn't look out of place charging in your living room. There's also no plugs to worry about. You can just slide them out of the bike, drop them onto the charger, and you're done. In terms of overall battery life, Maving says the battery should retain 60% capacity after 500 cycles, which according to Samsung should give you about 20,000 miles of travel before needing a new battery. So if you factor in zero road tax and finance deals of about £100 per month, Maving estimates the typical running cost to be just £60 per year. That must be cheaper than an Oyster card. In terms of performance, the Maving boasts the first spoke-mounted Bosch motor of its kind. The RM1's motor on the rear wheel drives the bike without the need for any belts or chains. Everything is connected by a braided hose which links the batteries to the motor, and you've got battery power. The motor produces 4.4 kilowatts of peak power, about 5.9 brake horsepower. It feels comparable to about a 110cc bike. It's also A1 friendly, so it can be ridden with just a CBT and L plates. Next, the riding experience. This is an urban focused machine. You swing your leg over the RM1, the bike feels light and narrow. The seat height is a user friendly 785mm, meaning even shorter riders will be able to get their feet down. The bar and foot peg position put you in a traditional roadster riding position with a hint of sportiness. Seb from Maeving mentioned that the ergonomics of the RM1 were inspired by the Yamaha MT-03, so this gives you an idea of where they were coming from.
Yeah, so when we were thinking about the design, we basically focused on two eras. So one was the board tracker era, so 1920s, so the first motorbikes that were beginning to be converted from bicycles. And that was partly because we love the classic design, but it's also because these were really lightweight bikes. They were basically bicycle frames that were being converted. So if you're trying to make a lightweight urban motorbike, it's a good place to start. But then also we looked to the kind of cafe racer era because it's sort of the darling of British motorcycle design.
A single analog speedometer with an LCD display gives you all the vitals, including the all-important battery charge percentage. The front headlight is also a crisp LED, accompanied by sweet LED indicators to boot. Pull the rear brake lever and press the D button on the right thumb and you're ready to go. Press the N button and you drop back into neutral. I also found that putting the kickstand down also engages neutral, which is quite a nice real-world motorcycling touch. The bike does come with 3 riding modes, but I left the bike in full power mode for the day. Modes 2 and 3 offer, lower battery consumption at the cost of lower performance, which is handy if you're just pootling around. Twisting the throttle gives you a gentle climb up to about 10 miles per hour. And at first I actually wondered if I would hold up the traffic, but if you keep the throttle pinned open, the jump from 10 miles an hour to 30 plus is quite rapid. Even though that initial pull from a standing start is slow, the pickup once you get going is plenty. Other practicalities like the turning circle on the Maving, it is super tight and almost bicycle-esque. It's easy to make sharp flowing U-turns on the RM1, which came in really handy as we were doing multiple flybys of the camera crew and having to turn around on tight London streets. The bike's 19-inch wheels are wrapped in Dunlop K70s, which are grippy enough, although I didn't pull any extreme lean angles riding through the streets of London. In terms of braking performance, the Maving comes with a single 3-pot at the front and a single pot caliper and disc at the rear. I did find that the front brake was a little bit soft at times, but using both brakes together, it provided ample braking performance and you could really bring the bike to a sharp halt, especially when pulling in at the side of the road, waiting for the rest of the convoy to catch up with us. It was quite fun diving into little nooks and crannies on the side of the London streets. The suspension setup on the Maving is relatively simple and does a good job of smoothing things out, even riding over some of those menacing speed humps you get in the centre of London. Out on the road, the bike itself is light, it feels nimble, the seat is a little firm, but it has a really nice shape to it which supports your butt quite nicely. But all the switch gears on the bike are simple and follow suit for the rest of the bike. It's really easy to use. You might wonder if 45 miles per hour is enough for a city bike, but I rarely found myself topping 35 miles an hour, especially in the deepest streets of London where most are lined with speed humps and 20 mile an hour zones. Now, one of the memorable features of the RM1's riding experience is how quiet it is, and I really didn't expect this to be such a grand feature, but while other electric motorcycles usually generate a whirring sound as you accelerate, the Maving is deathly silent. This means you can hear everything that's going on around you, which, in a big bustling city like London, it's a godsend. Where I'd usually be wearing earplugs to mute the sound of a big 3-cylinder or 2-cylinder engine beneath me, the Maving lets you hear everything that's going on. You can even chat with your mates if you're riding in a convoy. Now, the other notable benefit, which you might not have even considered, is the zero heat that comes from the engine. If you're doing lots of stop-starts with a petrol engine in a big city, things will get hot quickly and start to cook your legs. We've all been there. But with the RM1, however, it's as cool as a cucumber. And speaking of cool, this bike draws a lot of attention. If you park up outside a cafe, expect to be quizzed about the Maving. People seem genuinely surprised by the price tag, flabbergasted by the low running costs, and absolutely enamoured by its classic heritage design. In terms of battery performance, I covered about 30 miles of riding around central London and used about 34% of the battery charge. It's worth noting that with the Maving, there's no engine braking, so when you close the throttle, the bike rolls on effortlessly forward. I found that once I'd reached optimum speed, I just blipped the throttle now and again, and the bike kept its place at the front of the queue. I rarely had to have the throttle pinned open for long durations, and this in turn saved even more battery. And so, the verdict. There's nothing else quite like the Maving for this price point that looks like a proper motorcycle. This is a British urban classic that breaks the mould of futuristic scooters and e-bikes, allowing riders to conveniently zip through the busy streets and get to the front of the traffic in super cool style. Out on the open road, the RM1 would struggle, but this is the same for any 110cc petrol bike. The city is where the Maving thrives. A silent classic roadster that costs peanuts to run and pulls admiring glances from anyone and everyone. Even in the heatwave-stricken London city centre, riding the RM1 was an absolute pleasure.